and decide whether you're useful enough to keep around or vulnerable enough to exploit. Most people call this friendship, but Machiavelli called it warfare. Because while you're busy trusting, sharing, and being authentic, the people around you are already deciding whether to stand with you or stab you in the back when it matters most. Here's what nobody wants to admit. Every betrayal you've ever experienced wasn't random. It wasn't because someone suddenly changed. It was because you never saw the signs that were there from the beginning. The friend who disappeared when you needed them most. The colleague who threw you under the bus. The person who smiled to your face while undermining you behind closed doors. They all revealed their true nature early. You just weren't looking for it. Machiavelli understood something most people refuse to accept. Loyalty isn't a feeling, it's a calculation. And the people who seem most trustworthy are often the ones running the most sophisticated calculations of all. They've learned to weaponize your desire to be liked, your need to belong, your fear of being alone. They know exactly what to say to make you lower your guard, and they use that access to position themselves for maximum advantage. But what if you could see through the performance before it was too late? What if you could identify the fake friends and potential traitors before they had the chance to strike? That's exactly what these 7 tests are designed to do. These aren't guesses or hunches. These are surgical instruments designed to expose the truth about anyone in your circle, no matter how convincing their act might be. The first test is the small crisis simulation. Create a minor emergency that requires immediate help. Nothing dramatic, just something that temporarily inconveniences you, and see who responds. Tell your circle you're stranded with a dead car battery, locked out at your house, or dealing with a minor family emergency that requires a quick favor. The key is making it small enough that helping you costs them almost nothing, but urgent enough that it requires immediate action. Watch what happens next. Real friends respond without hesitation. They don't ask too many questions, they don't weigh the pros and cons, they just help. But fake friends, they reveal themselves instantly. They'll have excuses ready before you finish explaining. They'll offer hollow sympathy instead of actual to help later assistance. They'll promise when it's no longer needed. Or worst of all, they'll turn your crisis into a conversation about their own problems. Why does this work so perfectly? Because small crises bypass the performance. There's no time to calculate the social benefits of helping you. There's no audience to impress. It's just you, them, and a choice. And that choice reveals everything about how they actually see you when nobody else is watching. The second test cuts even deeper. The selective information leak. Share different versions of the same sensitive but harmless information with different people in your circle. Nothing that could actually hurt you, but something juicy enough that people might want to repeat it. Maybe tell one person you're considering a job change, tell another you're thinking about moving, tell a third you're having relationship doubts. Make each version slightly different with unique details. Then sit back and watch what happens. Within days, maybe weeks, you'll start hearing your own words come back to you through the network. But here's the genius part. You'll know exactly who leaked what because each person got their own unique version. The friend who swore they'd never betray your confidence will be exposed when their specific version starts making the rounds. This test doesn't just reveal who gossips. It reveals something far more dangerous. It shows you who treats your private information as social currency. These are the people who will sell your secrets for attention, approval, or advantage. And if they'll trade your harmless information today, they'll absolutely weaponize your real vulnerabilities tomorrow. The third test is the success response analysis. Share a piece of genuinely good news with your circle. Not something that requires their help or input, just something positive happening in your life. A promotion, a new opportunity, a personal achievement, anything that represents you winning. Then study their reactions with surgical precision. Real friends celebrate your wins without reservation. Their joy is immediate and authentic. They ask questions because they're genuinely interested, not because they're fishing for details to use against you later. But fake friends, they can't hide their true feelings when you succeed. Watch for the micro-expressions that flash across their faces before they remember to perform happiness. Look for the forced smiles that don't reach their eyes. Listen for the backhanded compliments disguised as congratulations. The most dangerous response isn't anger or obvious jealousy. It's the immediate pivot. The person who hears your good news and instantly changes the subject to their own problems or achievements. They can't stand your moment in the spotlight, so they either dim it or redirect it. This reveals someone who sees your success as their failure, your gain as their loss. And that mindset always leads to sabotage. The fourth test requires patience but delivers devastating clarity. The delayed reciprocity experiment. Do something genuinely helpful for people in your circle, something that costs you time, effort, or resources. Not a huge sacrifice, but something meaningful enough that reciprocity would be natural and expected. Then track how long it takes them to return the favor when opportunities arise. This isn't about keeping score in a petty way. This is about understanding the fundamental dynamic of your relationship. Real friends operate on natural reciprocity. They remember your kindness and look for ways to return it. They feel genuine gratitude and express it through actions, not just words. But fake friends treat your generosity as their entitlement. They accept your help as if it's owed to them, and they never feel the need to balance the scales. The most telling response is when they act surprised or even annoyed when you need something from them after helping them. They've mentally categorized you as a giver and themselves as a taker. And they resent anything that threatens that arrangement. These people will drain you dry while convincing you that asking for anything in return makes you selfish. The fifth test is perhaps the most revealing of all. The loyalty pressure situation. This happens naturally in group settings when someone starts criticizing or attacking someone else in your circle. Don't create drama. But when it occurs organically, pay attention to how different people respond. Some will defend the person being attacked, even if they're not present. Others will remain neutral, refusing to pile on but not actively defending either. But the dangerous ones, they'll join the attack or even escalate it. Watch who throws people under the bus when they're safe to think it do so. These are the same people who will throw you under the bus when the social winds shift against you. They're not loyal to individuals, they're loyal to whatever position gives them the most social advantage in the moment. They'll be your best friend when you're winning and your biggest critic when you're vulnerable. The sixth test exposes the deepest truth about someone's character. The boundary stress examination. Set a small but clear boundary with people in your circle. Nothing unreasonable, just something that establishes your limits. Maybe you don't want to discuss a particular topic, or you're not available at certain times, or you prefer not to be included in certain types of conversations. Real friends respect boundaries immediately and completely. They might ask for clarification once, but then they honor your request without pushback or passive-aggressive behavior. But fake friends reveal themselves through their response to any limitation you place on the relationship. They'll test the boundary repeatedly. They'll act like your limits are unreasonable or controlling. They'll make jokes about your boundaries to undermine them socially. This behavior exposes someone who fundamentally doesn't respect your autonomy. They see you as existing for their benefit, and any attempt to define the terms of your relationship threatens their sense of control. These people will never respect your bigger boundaries because they don't even respect your smaller ones. The seventh and final test requires the most courage but delivers the most devastating truth: the calculated absence withdrawal. Temporarily reduce your availability and attention to people in your circle. Not dramatically, not with explanation or announcement, just become slightly less accessible. Take longer to respond to messages, decline a few invitations, be less available for their usual emotional needs. Create a subtle but noticeable shift in your investment level. What happens next will separate the real from the fake with surgical precision. Real friends notice the change but respond with concern and understanding. They might ask if everything is okay, but they give you space if that's what you need. They don't make your temporary unavailability about themselves, and they don't punish you for having boundaries around your time and energy. But fake friends react to your reduced availability like addicts facing withdrawal. They become demanding, guilt-tripping, manipulative. They act like your decreased attention is a personal attack on them. They'll accuse you of changing, of becoming distant, of not caring about the friendship anymore. Some will try to manufacture emergencies to force you back into your usual pattern of availability. Others will start bad-mouthing you to mutual friends, painting you as unreliable or selfish. This reaction reveals people who never valued you as a person. They valued what you provided for them: your attention, your emotional labor, your resources, your validation. When that supply gets interrupted, even temporarily, their true nature explodes to the surface. They're not losing a friend, they're losing a service provider. And they'll respond with the same indignation as someone whose utilities got cut off without warning. The most dangerous response is the strategic counter-withdrawal. These are the people who immediately become less available to you in response to your reduced availability to them. Not out of hurt feelings or natural reciprocity, but as a calculated power play. They're trying to make you feel the loss of their attention so you'll return to your previous level of investment in them. This reveals someone who sees every relationship as a power struggle, every interaction as a negotiation, every friendship as a transaction. But here's where it gets truly Machiavellian. These tests work best when people don't know they're being tested. The moment someone realizes you're evaluating their loyalty or authenticity, they'll modify their behavior to pass your tests while still maintaining their hidden agendas. The genius of these tests is their reality. They feel subtle like normal life circumstances, not examinations. Most people fail these tests not because they're inherently evil, but because they lack the emotional maturity or self-awareness to be genuine friends. They operate from insecurity, fear, or learned patterns of behavior that make authentic connection impossible. They're not plotting your destruction. They're just incapable of the reciprocity and loyalty that real friendship requires. But the result is the same. They'll disappoint you when it matters, abandon you when you need them, and betray you when it benefits them. The truly dangerous ones are different. They pass some tests while failing others, creating a complex pattern that's harder to read. They might help you in a crisis but gossip about your successes. They might respect your boundaries but disappear during your calculated absence. These people are running longer-term strategies. They're smart enough to invest in the relationship when it serves their purposes while positioning themselves to exploit you when the opportunity arises. Understanding these patterns changes everything about how you navigate relationships. You stop giving the benefit of the doubt to people who've already shown you their true nature. You stop making excuses for behavior that consistently falls below the standard of genuine friendship. You stop investing emotional energy in people who see that investment as weakness rather than gift. But more importantly, you start building a circle of people who consistently pass these tests. People who show up in crises, who guard your secrets, who celebrate your wins, who reciprocate your kindness, who defend you when you're not present, who respect your boundaries and who value your presence rather than just what you provide. These people exist, but you'll never find them if you don't know how to separate them from the performers, users, and traitors. The real power in these tests isn't just identifying who to remove from your circle. It's knowing who deserves your deepest trust, your genuine vulnerability, your most valuable resources. Because once you know who's really on your side, you can stop wasting energy on relationships that were never real in the first place. Their true nature through this failed test is valuable information. Every person who reveals examinations is someone you now understand completely. You know their limitations, their motivations, their likely behavior in future situations. That knowledge is power, and power properly applied becomes protection. This is where most people make their biggest mistake. They run these tests, identify the fake friends and traitors, and then do nothing with that information. They keep the same people in their circle hoping things will change. They make excuses for failed tests, convincing themselves that maybe the person was just having a bad day or going through something difficult. They dilute the power of their discoveries by refusing to act on them. But Machiavelli would tell you something crucial. Information without action is just entertainment. The moment you know someone's true nature and choose to ignore it, you become complicit in your own future betrayal. You've handed them the knife and shown them exactly where to place it for maximum damage. The strategic response to failed tests isn't emotional. It's not about anger, confrontation, or dramatic friendship breakups. It's about systematic repositioning. You adjust the level of access, information, and investment that person receives from you. Not as punishment, but as protection. You treat them exactly as they've shown you they deserve to be treated. Someone who failed the crisis test gets downgraded from emergency contact to casual acquaintance. They're not the person you call when life gets difficult. Someone who leaked your information gets fed only surface-level details about your life. They've proven they can't handle anything deeper. Someone who couldn't celebrate your success gets to hear about your wins last, if at all. Their jealousy has disqualified them from your inner circle. This isn't about being cold or calculating. This is about being realistic. You're simply aligning your investment in each relationship with what that relationship has proven it can handle. Some people earn your trust and vulnerability through consistent passing of these tests. Others earn polite distance through their consistent failures. The most sophisticated traders will recognize what's happening when you start repositioning. They'll sense the shift in energy, the change in access, the reduction in your investment. And that's when they'll deploy their most dangerous weapon, the guilt campaign. They'll accuse you of changing, of becoming paranoid, of ruining good friendships over nothing. They'll paint themselves as victims of your unreasonable standards. This reaction is actually the final test. The person who responds to your boundary adjustments with manipulation and guilt-tripping has just revealed the deepest truth about themselves. They believe they're entitled to access to you regardless of how they treat you. They think friendship is a one-way street where they take everything and give nothing while you should be grateful for the privilege of their presence. Real friends respond differently when they sense distance. They reflect on their own behavior first. They ask genuine questions about how they might have fallen short. They respect your need for space while working to rebuild trust through consistent actions, not manipulative words. They understand that relationships require maintenance, and that trust, once damaged, must be rebuilt slowly and carefully. But here's where the game becomes truly advanced. Once you've identified the real friends through these tests, you can begin building something powerful. Not just a circle of trustworthy people, but a network of mutual protection and advancement. People who've proven their loyalty can be trusted with more sensitive information. They can be included in bigger opportunities. They become part of your strategy rather than obstacles to it. This is how power compounds in relationships. The people who pass your tests become the foundation for everything else you build. They're the ones who'll warn you about threats they've identified. They're the ones who'll recommend you for opportunities. They're the ones who'll defend your reputation when you're not in the room. They become extensions of your own strategic thinking rather than variables you have to constantly calculate around. The fake friends and traitors you've identified don't disappear from your life entirely. They remain in your outer circle, useful for certain purposes, but never trusted with anything important. You maintain cordial relationships with them because burning bridges rarely serves your interests. But you never forget what they've shown you about themselves. You never make the mistake of promoting them back to positions of trust based on promises or temporary good behavior. This creates a layered defense system around your life. The people closest to you have earned that position through consistent demonstration of loyalty and character. The people in your middle circle are useful but limited in their access to your real plans and vulnerabilities. The people in your outer circle are managed relationships that serve specific purposes but never influence your important decisions. Most people live their entire lives without this kind of clarity about their relationships. They treat everyone the same, giving their deepest trust to people who haven't earned it while keeping genuinely loyal people at arm's length out of fear or habit. They wonder why they keep getting betrayed, why their secrets keep getting leaked, why people disappear when life gets challenging. The answer is simple. They never tested anyone. They never gathered the intelligence they needed to make smart decisions about trust and access. They operated on hope instead of evidence, on potential instead of proof. And hope, while beautiful, is a terrible foundation for strategic relationships. These 7 tests change that dynamic completely. They give you the evidence you need to make informed decisions about every person in your circle. They reveal who deserves your trust and who deserves your caution. They show you who will stand with you when everything falls apart and who will be the first to distance themselves when association with you becomes inconvenient. But perhaps most importantly, they reveal something about yourself. How you respond to the results of these tests shows you whether you're serious about protecting yourself or whether you're still operating from emotional neediness and fear of being alone. The person who continues investing in relationships that consistently fail these tests isn't being kind or loyal. They're being self-destructive. Now you have the tools. 7 precise tests that cut through every mask, every performance, every carefully constructed lie that people use to hide their true nature. But tools without action are worthless, and knowledge without application is just entertainment. The choice you make next determines whether you remain vulnerable to betrayal or become untouchable through intelligence. Use these tests, trust the results, and build your circle based on evidence, not hope. Because in a world full of actors, the person who can see through the performance holds all the power. There's a moment when someone shows you their true face. Not the polished version they wear in public, not the careful performance they've rehearsed for years, but the raw, unfiltered truth of who they really are when they think nobody's watching. Most people miss this moment entirely because they're too busy listening to words instead of watching actions. But Machiavelli, he built his entire understanding of human nature around one simple truth. Loyalty isn't what people say when everything is perfect. It's what they do when everything falls apart. You think you know who's loyal to you. Your business partner who shakes your hand every morning. Your friend who calls you family. Your employee who stays late and works weekends. But here's what Machiavelli understood 500 years ago that most people still don't grasp today. Every single person in your life is performing loyalty until the moment they're tested. And when that test comes, and it always comes, you'll discover that 90% of the people you trusted were just waiting for the right opportunity to show you exactly how little you actually meant to them. This isn't cynicism, this is strategy. Because the person who can identify true loyalty versus performed loyalty holds a power that most people will never understand. They know who to trust with their secrets, who to invest their energy in, and who to keep at arm's length no matter how convincing their act might be. They know who will stand with them when the stakes are high and who will vanish the moment things get uncomfortable. Today, I'm going to show you Machiavelli's most surgical question for revealing true loyalty. Not the loyalty people claim to have, not the loyalty they perform when it's convenient, but the loyalty that exists in the deepest part of their character when everything else is stripped away. This isn't about manipulation or testing people for sport. This is about protection. This is about knowing exactly who deserves your trust and who's been playing a game you didn't even realize was happening. But before we dive into the question itself, you need to understand why most people are completely wrong about loyalty in the first place. They think loyalty is about grand gestures, public declarations, or years of consistent behavior. They think it's about who shows up to your birthday party or who likes your social media posts. They think it's about who says the right things when you're celebrating your wins. But Machiavelli knew better. He understood that loyalty isn't measured in moments of joy. It's measured in moments of loss. Think about the people in your life right now, your closest friends, your romantic partner.